Chapter 7. A Surprise Meeting. Ethel landed safely at the very edge of the ice cap and waved at a passing ship. The captain sent out a boat to pick her up and welcomed her on board. The captain and his crew were kind and friendly. They found a place for Ethel to have her own cabin and gave her a sailor's cap to wear, and they all liked her.
"Why don't you stay on the ship and sail around the world with us?" asked the captain hopefully a few days later.
"Thank you, but I must get back to the North Pole," Ethel replied.
"Well, at least stay until we get to Australia," said the captain.
"No, please put me ashore as soon as possible," said Ethel firmly.
The captain sighed. "Of course," he said,
and dropped her off at his next port of call, in Hawaii. Ethel the sensible elf brought herself an ice cream and wondered how to get home. Then she noticed a small queue of parents and children outside a hut and went over to see what was going on. Above the door of the hut were the words, "Santa's Grotto." Ethel gasped. Could it really be? She peeked inside the hut, and her ice cream nearly popped out of its socket. Those boots! She was sure that she recognized them. Ethel went to join the back of the queue, and by the time she had finished her ice cream, it was her turn to see Santa. Father Christmas, for it was he, did not recognize her at first.
"Hello, little girl," he said. "What would you like for Christmas?"
"Father Christmas, it's me," said Ethel.
"A balloon?"
suggested Father Christmas, who still did not seem to realize who she was.
"A pencil case?"
"I said it's me," said Ethel, taking off her sailor's cap.
"Oh,"
said Father Christmas. "Father Christmas," said Ethel firmly, "you must come home at once."
"I can't hear you," said Father Christmas. "I've got a bit of wax in my ear."
"I said, you must come home at once." Father Christmas sighed deeply.
"Oh, all right,"
he said. Chapter 8. What happened to Lawrence? When Ethel the sensible elf was blown away by the wind, Lawrence raced to help. But the wind was strong. Soon she was just a dot in the sky, and eventually she disappeared into the distance. For many days, Lawrence followed the direction of the wind across the polar ice cap, until finally he reached the sea. There he found a single balloon. When she had boarded the ship, Ethel had, of course, taken her balloons with her to put in the balloon recycling bin, but she had left this one behind by mistake. Lawrence looked out over the ocean. There was no sign of Ethel. He turned around and walked slowly back towards the North Pole. He felt very sad. When Lawrence the ladybird-nosed reindeer got back, he didn't know what to do. Then he saw Ethel's pencil lying in the snow. He picked it up and put it firmly into one of his antlers. Having the pencil made Lawrence feel a little bit better. Ethel the sensible elf was brave. She would have tried with the balloons again, he thought. So I must be brave too, and try for her, and not drop the pencil. Lawrence opened Father Christmas's secret cupboard and got out some more balloons, but it was no good. He could not blow them up properly, and instead of floating into the air with them, they hung limply from his mouth. Lawrence realized that there was only one thing to do. If he could not float over the three-spike fence, he would have to jump over it. Lawrence ran towards the fence and jumped as hard as he could. It was a great jump. The spikes poked up towards him, but they could not reach him, and he landed safely on the other side. Now, all he had to do was find the computer. The guard elves had seen Lawrence's great jump. They came running after him, shouting, "Stop! Stop!" Lawrence took no notice. He was a deer and could run much faster than they could, and he did. He ran straight through the warehouse and right across the tables by the coffee shop. Then he spotted a wire. Lawrence carefully followed the wire this way and that until it led him all the way back to the computer. At last he had reached the source of the trouble. Lawrence raised his hoof to switch the computer off. But then he paused. Which button was the off button? Lawrence did not know. He started pressing one button after another, but none of them worked. The computer stayed switched on. Like most computers, it was designed to be easy to switch on, but hard to switch off again. Lawrence started to stamp on the buttons. Stamp, stamp, stamp! Then crash! His hoof went right through the computer so that it was stuck on his foot. He poked at it with his antlers, and it got stuck on them too. Lawrence reared and jumped to try and rid himself of the computer. As he did so, great cracks appeared in the ice, and the buildings began to tilt and wobble. The elves and the other reindeer ran to safety, but Lawrence kept battling the computer. Finally, he shook himself free of it and trampled it into little bits. By now, a great hole had appeared in the ice. The buildings started to sink, and all the expensive presents poured out of the warehouse and bobbed around on the surface of the water. Little by little, the buildings, the fencing, and the security cameras were all swallowed up by the sea. The communications tower was the last to go under. Now all that could be seen were the presents, and soon they too started to sink. Down, down, down they went, until they disappeared into the murky depths. Chapter 9. Father Christmas Returns. As Lawrence swam for the shore, he noticed a red bobble hat poking up above the snow. Who could it be? It was Father Christmas. With Father Christmas's help, Lawrence climbed back onto land. And here there was another surprise, for holding on to Father Christmas's legs was Ethel the sensible elf. The two friends were overjoyed to see each other and rushed to hug one another. Then they went dancing across the snow. "Why, Lawrence, you've saved my pencil," said Ethel. She took it from Lawrence's antler and put it back behind her ear. Then she gave Lawrence the flower she had picked up in Hawaii. Lawrence ate it with great enjoyment. Meanwhile, the other elves had come running over to Father Christmas and put him in front of a warm fire with a nice hot cup of tea. Father Christmas sipped his tea and looked at the cheerful faces all around him.
"What a happy ending," he said.
But this was too much for Right Lad. "A happy ending?" he exclaimed incredulously. "What do you mean, a happy ending? Your computer's been smashed to bits. And what about all those expensive presents? Every one of them gone, forever, sunk to the bottom of the sea, and it's nearly Christmas. What are we going to give to the children?"
"Ho, ho, ho! Don't worry about that," said Father Christmas.
And he went off to his secret cupboard. Chapter 10. Deja Vu. It was Christmas Eve. The hole in the ice had frozen over again, and the North Pole was back in its proper place, next to a new igloo. The children had hung out their stockings, and now they were all fast asleep. And Father Christmas was flying through the air in his sleigh, with a sack full of presents. In the morning, the children woke up and rushed to open their stockings. And this is what they found. A packet of crisps, a tube of toothpaste, a toothbrush, a book, a beanbag in the shape of a frog, a train or a fairy, and a balloon. At the toe of the stocking was the very last present. It was a small round present, so small that you might not even notice it. It was a walnut. Usually Father Christmas ignored letters of complaint, but this year, after protests that his presents were sexist, he had given the train or the fairy to girls and boys at random. He had also changed them a bit, so that the train was pink, and the fairy carried a weapon. But this did not help matters. When the children opened their presents, 90% of them still made a huge fuss. They screamed and kicked. They mashed up their crisps and trod them into the carpet. They jumped on their balloons. They made such a racket that the whole world shook. But Father Christmas didn't notice. He was back at the North Pole, fast asleep in his igloo.